και κύριοι, καλησπέρα σας. Σήμερα έχουμε τη μεγάλη χαρά και την τιμή να φιλοξενούμε, να συναντούμε τον διαπρεπή μαρξιστή, φιλόσοφο και κοινωνιολόγο ΜΙΚΑΕΛ ΛΕΒΙ, επίτιμο καθηγητή στο Εθνικό Κέντρο Επιστημονικών Ερευνών της Γαλλίας, συγγραφέα πολλών βιβλίων, τα οποία έχουν μεταφραστεί σε 29 γλώσσες. Κύριε ΛΕΒΙ, καλησπέρα και σε εσάς.
Καλησπέρα.
Μιλάτε ελληνικά?
Λιγάκι, δυστυχώς όχι αρκετά για μια συνέντευξη.
Αντίστοιχα, τα γαλλικά μου δεν είναι αρκετά για μια συνέντευξη στα γαλλικά. Έχετε ζήσει στη Γαλλία από το 1969. So we can meet in a common ground, English.
English, okay. That's fine.
Recently you were the speaker of the convention of the foundation of Parliament under the title Art and Democracy. Your speech was on Romanticism.
Right. Yes, my friends from the foundation asked me to talk about Romanticism, so that's what I did.
How was your speech connected to your book, Romanticism and Melancholia?
Yeah, well, I took some of the ideas of my book, trying to explain what I understand by Romanticism, and, well, from then I gave some examples, Surrealism, I talk about Surrealism, so that was it, yeah.
Surrealists were romantics.
Yes, they were revolutionary romantics.
It was an important, maybe the last massive important art movement of the 20th century.
I don't know if it was the last, but it was, I think, something very, very important, not only as art, poetry, but also as philosophy, as a way of thinking, of living, of politics, of revolution, everything together. Yeah, and I think
massive, yes.
Yeah, well, not massive. It was.
I mean, concerning all the aspects of art.
Yes, exactly. Not only of art, of life.
And of life, yes.
Because the Surrealists believe you cannot separate art from life. Yeah?
Yes, of course.
You have to live, and to do art and poetry and politics, it all has to be coherent, yes?
Yes.
That's what I try to say.
I'm a big admirer of Surrealists and André Breton and
yes.
all the rest, so I understand. I try to understand what you mean.
You know that Surrealism still exists in France.
Yes.
Yes, there is still a Surrealist activity, not only in France, but in Greece.
Yes.
In England, in Brazil, in Spain, there is a whole international network of people who continue to have a collective surrealist activity.
And which is the form of the surrealistic movement of today?
Yeah, it depends on the countries, yes.
In France?
In France, well, the surrealists are people who have... The idea is that you practice art and poetry collectively, yeah? So they do things together, and they play also surrealist games. These are very important. The games are something almost sacred for the surrealists. Yeah? When you play a game, you belong to a kind...
You are free.
Yeah, you are free, and you are producing something which is not to be sold in the commerce, it's not a commodity, and you feel part of something larger, and which has humor and poetry and the marvelous and the subversive. The political subversive is very important in surrealist activity. Yeah.
Which brings me to how could art produced within the context of today's reality be revolutionary?
Well, there is no one single way to be revolutionary. There are all kinds of ways by which art can be critical, subversive, and a protest against reality. Yeah? And surrealism is one of these ways, but there are others, right?
Yes, of course.
But, you know, André Breton and Leon Trotsky met in Mexico in 1938. And their views on art were very different, but they agreed that art must be free, cannot be controlled by the state. This was against the socialist realism, and that the authentic art is always revolutionary. Yeah?
Always.
Always, yeah, because authentic art, which is not produced for the state, the government, the market, etc., always is the expression of human needs, and therefore it clashes with the established order. Yeah?
Though traditionally artists were at the service of the official authority, the official state, the kings, etc.
Of course, art was part of the official culture, but artists always were able to introduce secretly into their official works, yeah, some form of poetical distance from reality. Yeah? So
yes.
This subversive, marvelous poetical element is, I think, present even in the art which was commissioned by the state, by the church, whatever.
Nietzsche has said that there's no artist who can tolerate reality,
yes.
And this saying is the base of modernism. The Nietzsche of modernists is close to the ideas of Byron in a way.
Yes, but I think Byron, Nietzsche, and the Surrealists are different forms of Romanticism. Mm-hmm. Yeah? So I see this meaning of this common thread going throughout art as linked to the Romanticism. Yeah?
Do you consider the new ecological movements as romantic ones?
Well, I have to explain what I understand by Romanticism, otherwise yes. I cannot answer your question.
Yes, what is Romanticism to you?
Because usually, if you open a book of history of literature or art, they say Romanticism is a literary or artistical school of the early 19th century, yes?
Yes.
I think this is too small. Yeah, Romanticism is something much larger and much deeper. Yeah? For as I see it, and I'm following here Lukács and E.P. Thompson and other people who have...
Lukács influenced you deeply?
Yes, yes.
You are very close to his ideas?
Yes, I am, yeah. And the way he understood Romanticism, and I think he was right, and also Marx had also the same understanding of Romanticism. Romanticism is
early Marx or...
No, Marx in the Grundrisse.
Okay.
You know, okay. Marx in the Grundrisse has a phrase on Romanticism which I think says everything. Yeah? He says, Romantics are people who are opposed to bourgeois society in the name of the past. Yeah? Pre-bourgeois, pre-capitalist, pre-modern values. Yeah? Religious values, social, cultural, etc. So this is the essence of Romanticism. Yeah? And Marx says something very important: as long as bourgeois society exists, the romantic protest against it will continue to exist. Yeah? And I think this is true. So Romanticism, as I see it, is not a period, 1800 to 1830, 40. It's part of modern culture since the 18th century, since Jean-Jacques Rousseau, let's say,
yes.
who is sort of founder of Romanticism, until today.
Yes.
Yeah? And you find this common element, this cultural protest against modern capitalist, bourgeois, industrial, Western civilization in the name of the past values. Now, this protest can be regressive. Yeah? When the artists or the thinkers or the political thinkers aim at restoring the past or returning to the past. This can be regressive or even reactionary. Or the Romantics are resignated. They say, we don't like bourgeois society, but it's inevitable. It's a fatality, like Max Weber, the sociologist. But then you have revolutionary Romantics. And these are people who don't want to return to the past, but they proceed a kind of detour through the past towards the future. Yeah?
They want to destroy the mechanisms of today.
Yes.
Not copy the past,
Yes.
but through this process, this revolutionary process,
Yes.
create a new
Exactly.
a new
Create
state.
a new society,
a new status, yes.
a new society, a new civilization, a new way of life, where some values which existed in the past are retrieved, but in a new form. Huh? So let's take Rousseau, who is the founder of Romanticism. Rousseau would say the man, the savage man, the primitive man, was free, and there was freedom and equality. Today, there is no freedom and no equality in bourgeois society.
Yes.
But Rousseau didn't say we have to return to live like the savage. No. He said we need a new society, a democratic society, where people will be again free and equal. Yeah? Not like the savages, but in a new way. Yeah? So this is revolutionary romanticism.
Yes, yes. Of course, with freedom came also the restrictions. The law was developed, imprisonment in the name of freedom. Certain punishments were imposed, and we weren't free in the name of freedom.
Well, some of the romantics had a anarchist sensibility, yes?
Yes.
So they believed that freedom should have no limits and no state, police, prison, etc. Yeah? And the Surrealists agreed with this. Yeah? You know, Walter Benjamin has a beautiful essay on Surrealism, 1929, where he says, since Bakunin, the founder of anarchism, Europe did not have a radical idea of freedom. The Surrealists have it. Yeah? So they had this radical idea of freedom, which has a kind of anarchist roots, if you want. Yeah?
Yes.
And Franz Kafka also was some great writer who had this anarchist attitude, right?
You've studied Kafka. You've written also a book on Kafka,
Right.
Franz Kafka.
Right.
Kafka. We have it in the background. Do you consider Kafka to be a political writer?
Well, yes and no. Yeah? Means Kafka did not sit and write his novels in order to give a political message. He was just giving expression to some deep feelings which he had, and these were his aspiration for freedom, for absolute freedom. He himself wrote in his diaries, I need absolute freedom. So in his writings you feel this aspiration, and this kind of need for absolute freedom led him to have relation with anarchist circles in Prague. So he had sympathy for them. He was not a political person. He was not a member, leader of no, but he had this feeling, this state of mind. And I think this is very much present in his novels, in his writing. This protest against authority, against authoritarian structures. I think this is a
the way bureaucracy also emerged through his writings.
Exactly. In all his writings, you feel this aspiration for unlimited freedom and this protest against all forms of authoritarian power, being it of the law, of the judges, the tribunals, the castle, and so on.
Yes. Mr. Levy, would you characterize yourself as a romantic?
Well, I'm modestly only someone who studies Romanticism. But of course I have interest, I have sympathy with Romanticism. But I'm not a painter or a poet, I'm just a sociologist who studies Romanticism. Okay?
It's not random what we choose to
yes, of course, there's some
to study so deeply. You arrived to live in France in 1969, correct me if I'm wrong.
Right.
1 year after the volatile period of civil unrest in Paris with 1968 May, yes. How was the atmosphere by that time in France, in Paris?
Well, I came too late, yeah. I came in 69, yeah. But still, the kind of, the spirit of May 68 was still very much present in the years that followed, still the mid-70s, yeah?
Yes.
So I think the spirit of May 68 had much to do with Romanticism, yeah? Because some of the people who inspired the youth in May 68, not all of them, but some of the important figures had to do with Romanticism. And among them the Surrealists, because many of the slogans of the movement in the walls were of Surrealist inspiration. The Situationists of Guy Debord, which was a kind of dissident form of Surrealism, they also had a very strong romantic component. And Henri Lefebvre, the philosopher, who also was very influential in May 68, he also was a kind of Marxist romantic, yes? So these people were very much present in the spirit of May 68. So I think there was a romantic component, a protest against the industrial, bureaucratic, technocratic state of affairs in France during those years, right?
Absolutely. Alain Guismard, one of the leaders of the time, later pointed out that the revolution, May 1968, the protest, failed as a political revolution, but succeeded as a social one.
Yeah.
Do you agree with him?
Yes and no. Yeah. It's true that thanks to the movement of May 68, a series of changes became to occur. For instance, the women's movement, yeah, emerged in May 68 and became more and more influential in the 70s. And this led to some positive changes, not enough, but some positive changes. Yeah?
Yes.
And the same in other areas, in education, etc. But I wouldn't say that May 68 won in social terms, because they wanted a much more radical social transformation. They wanted to abolish capitalism. This is not only political, this is also social. And they couldn't, yes? So I think May 68 achieved some things in the cultural, social level. Particularly, it helped new movements to appear. Yeah, the women's movement, the ecological movement, the student movement. So this is I think, the most important cultural heritage of May 68.
You go back to that period now with cold blood too.
Well, I cannot be cold-blooded about these things. No. I still feel very much identified with the revolutionary aspirations of the young people in May 68. Yeah? I think they were right to rebel, and they were absolutely right to struggle for a radical transformation of society. Yeah?
Yes.
So I think this utopia, this revolutionary utopia of May 68 is still relevant today. So I cannot really take a distance saying, well, this is something of the past. Yeah?
It was a very vibrant revolutionary climate coming from all over the planet. Do you think that globalization has vanished this possibility?
Well, history never repeats itself, so we were not going to see a new May 68, but in each historical conditions, there are always movements of protest, of rebellion, of change, or revolutionary movements, yes? So I think we have seen also in the recent years the movement of the indignated in Greece, in Spain, in Occupy Wall Street, in the United States.
The No Borders movement.
No Borders movement, yes. So there are all kinds of social movements.
Black Lives Matter.
Of course,
movement.
Yeah, and the Women's March in the United States recently, yeah.
Yes.
So there are always movements.
The subcultures marches.
Sorry?
All the subcultures movement marches, yes.
But social movements also, and with a strong political dimension. Yeah, so they are both social, cultural, and political. Yeah, and there is no way for the capitalist globalized system to get rid of protest, rebellion, struggle. Yeah?
Yes, but will these protests be as strong and massive is required for a change?
I don't know. This we cannot predict, but we can only hope, yes, and participate in the movements, hoping that they will be able to change things, but there is no guarantee. There are no laws of history or of dialectics which guarantee the future.
Capitalism is very inventive. Maybe there's a predicted space for protest, so
Sure.
that yes.
Sure. Yeah, of course, capitalism can tolerate all kinds of movements, etc. But at a certain moment, these movements become a danger for the system. Yeah, this has been so in the past, and I think it will happen in the future too. And capitalism is not able to solve its contradictions, yeah? Which are not only economic. For instance, the ecological problem. Yeah? This is a terrible contradiction which capitalism cannot solve. So I think ecological movements will be, in the next few years, very central in the challenge against the system.
I couldn't agree more. Ecological movements are the number one, ecology is the number one political issue of our time. Could we claim, Mr. Levy, Mr. Professor, that capitalism is twisting the essence of Romanticism by leading it inwards? And leading it to sterile pleasures, and during the process exterminates, cancels Romanticism.
Yeah, of course, capitalism, the logic of capitalism is to transform everything into a commodity, right? Emotions, feelings, romanticism, everything becomes a commodity, is brought to the market, is sold, and it nourishes the system. Yeah? But still, it cannot quite neutralize and cancel it, because there is in Romanticism a basic, the basic spirit of Romanticism is a protest against capitalist civilization. It's a rebellion against bourgeois society. So even if the system transforms everything into a commodity, it cannot prevent again and again the spirit of romantic protest to rebel against the system. Yeah? So I think this is part of the contradictions of the capitalist system.
Contradictions also nourish, though, capitalism.
Yes, of course. But some contradictions...
There's room for everything, like a party.
Yes, of
capitalism
course.
is like what we say about a party. You need everything, even contradictions, to make a capitalism.
That's sure.
The oppositions are needed somehow. They empower capitalism.
To some extent, sure. But at a certain moment, the contradictions become so strong that the system cannot deal with them. Yeah? For instance, the ecological contradiction. Yeah? We see that capitalism is totally unable to deal with the ecological problem. They have these big meetings, yes, of many governments and countries and banks and industries, and they keep talking, but nothing really happened, yeah? Because the system is not able to solve this contradiction.
Mr. Levy, you were the assistant of the distinguished Greek philosopher and sociologist Nikos Poulantzas. How did you meet him?
Yeah, well, when Poulantzas started to lecture at the University of Vincennes, it was called at that time, Paris 8, a new university created after May 68, he took as his assistant a young Brazilian scholar who was a good friend of mine. Now, in 1969, this friend of mine decided to return to Latin America, not to Brazil. There was a military dictatorship, but he went to Chile.
Allende was...
just before the election.
Yes, yes.
And so he introduced me to Poulantzas, saying, I'm leaving Paris now, but here is my friend, Michael, who is a Marxist like me, and he can replace me. Yeah?
Yes.
So Poulantzas said, fine, okay, let's take this young man as my assistant. Yeah? So that's how I met him.
Though you were both Marxists, you were a member of different circles.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't agree philosophically or even politically. We were very different.
He was a genre of Euro-communist.
Yes, we were of very different kinds of Marxism, let's say. Yeah? Poulantzas was a follower of Althusser. I was a follower of Lukács.
Lukács.
Although Poulantzas was on my PhD jury on Lukács. I invited him. Anyhow. And he was for Euro-communism, I was for revolutionary communism. So we disagreed. But he was a very open-minded person, and he didn't want to impose his views on me, right? And we did our lectures together. We went together in front of the students. So, and one...
You debate.
Yeah, we had a debate. One of them talked, and then the other said, I agree with my friend, but I have some disagreements, and explained the other viewpoint. So we worked together.
Very creative.
Yeah.
Very creative
process. And the students liked this very much, to see this discussion. And so we were very good friends, yeah, in spite of the fact that we didn't agree in everything. Yeah?
How did he affect your work?
Well...
On Lukács, for instance.
Yeah, no, not at all. No.
Your PhD.
He didn't, no, not my PhD. He didn't like Lukács, yeah.
Because Lukács believed that the whole state mechanism...
That was not the problem. It was a more philosophical disagreement. I remember when he was in my jury, I remember he saying, Michael, you are so smart person. Why you are studying Lukács? There's no interest in Lukács.
He tried to turn you in another direction.
Yeah, but
he failed.
But anyhow, it didn't matter. I followed Lukács. No, he didn't influence my work at that moment. I started to get nearer to him later, when he became interested in Rosa Luxemburg. You
were fond of Rosa Luxemburg's views?
Absolutely.
Yes,
I have been a follower of Rosa Luxemburg since my youth. I've always, when I was 16 years old, I fell in love with Rosa Luxemburg.
Yes.
And I remained faithful to this love
we can understand.
Until today. Okay?
We can understand.
So when Poulantzas became interested in Rosa Luxemburg, we became nearer politically. Yeah? And then some of his writings influenced me. Yeah?
Maybe because you believe that he moved further on the thoughts of Rosa Luxemburg, combining immediate democracy and representative democracy within the revolutionary process.
Yes, I agreed with this idea of combining direct and representative democracy, and also his insistence following Rosa Luxemburg that a true revolutionary movement must be democratic and must have freedom and democracy, otherwise we are lost. Yeah? So this was his conclusion from Stalinism, the sad experience of Stalin. So we agreed on this, so we came nearer.
Yes, understandable. Unfortunately, Nikos Poulantzas died very young, questioning his whole ever. Do you think that the dead end he was facing was magnified by his depression, or maybe by the knowledge that capitalism is very strong and with the power to be nourished by its enemies, and through this process exterminate them?
Look, it's very difficult to answer. Yeah? His suicide remains enigmatic. Yeah? There is a political background. Of course, the late 70s were a rather negative period for the left and for Marxism, But still, I don't think this is enough. I think really there is a personal dimension, his depression, as you said. I think this was the most important component. But of course, the political background also contributed. Yeah, but finally, it's something which there is no explanation. Yeah, his friends, we still remain perplexed. We don't know how to explain it.
I have interviewed Konstantinos Tsoukalas, who was in his apartment
Yes.
the day he committed the suicide. And changing the subject, he mentioned that the left ideas are meant to be in the sphere of dreams. And the capitalistic ideas, the conservative ideas, are meant to rule because they are linked to conservation. How do you how do you hear this
Look,
saying?
you know, Lenin once said, we revolutionaries have to dream, because without dreams there will be no revolution. Yeah, so we need dreams, but of course dreams are not enough. Yeah, we need to organize, to have concrete action related to concrete needs of the people. So one has to combine both things. Yes, and I think Poulantzas's writings were interesting because he tried to do this. Yeah, to start with concrete needs of the people and build on this towards a dream of socialist democracy. Yeah?
Yes, that's why he didn't believe that the whole state's mechanism should vanish after the revolution. Though Lenin used to say, we cannot create something new with the ruins of capitalism.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we had a debate on this. Yeah, we had some disagreement on this. Yeah, he believed that socialist transformation can use the state. I believe that socialist transformation must, at some stage, destroy the existing state and create some new form of democracy. So we had a debate on this.
You had a debate.
Yeah, we had a debate on this.
Understandable. By now, have you reviewed crucial beliefs of your youth?
Well, not really. You know, I am a very
dedicated.
I don't know if
stubborn?
This the stubborn. Yeah, exactly. That's the word. I'm a bit stubborn, so I became a follower of Rosa Luxemburg when I was 16, and I remained until today. So I didn't change my belief. Of course, I discovered new things which I didn't know, like Romanticism and like ecology. Ecology didn't exist when we were young revolutionaries in the 60s and 70s, but I think today it's a decisive issue. Yeah? So I learned something.
The fact that socialism failed in action didn't make you lose heart.
Look, since I was a follower of Rosa Luxemburg, I always believed that socialism or communism must be based on freedom and democracy, right? So I was always very critical of the Soviet model, which was very authoritarian, particularly during the times of Stalin, but also afterwards. So I saw this as a kind of bureaucratic caricature of socialism. So it was not my model.
Yes.
So when it crumbled down, of course, we hoped, I and many friends, we hoped that this would open the road for democratic socialism. Unfortunately, this didn't happen. Yeah, but it was not for us, for me and for people around me. We didn't believe that this was the model for socialism. Yeah.
You are still a romantic, as you have already admitted. Do you believe that by definition youth is synonym to utopia and therefore to romanticism?
Well, yes and no. It means youth is a period when favorable to romantic and utopian feelings, that's absolutely sure, but not all young people are utopians. Some of them are very conservative. And not all old people are conservative and reactionary. So one has to relativize. But of course, the youth is a time which is favorable to this rebellion and utopian aspirations. Sure.
How do you see young people of today and the students of the universities of the 21st century? How do they differ from you as teenagers?
It's difficult to compare. I must say I am Brazilian.
Do you understand them?
I understand.
You're Brazilian, yes.
I'm Brazilian. I was born in Brazil.
With Jewish
background, of course.
Yes, as Marx.
And
he wasn't a Brazilian, though.
Who?
Marx was also of
Jewish background, of course,
Jewish
as
background.
Kafka and Lukács, etc.
Yes, so it's a strong element of your personality, your Jewish background.
Yeah, I think it's important. Yeah.
How?
It's I don't know. It's difficult to say, but among my interests there is also the relation between Jewish culture and revolutionary utopias. Yeah, I have studied this. I have written on this. Yeah, but I want to say something about Brazil.
Yes.
Because I go very often to Brazil. I have strong relations with Brazil, with the people, and I'm very impressed by the Brazilian youth. They are much more radicals, much more active, much more politicized than the European youth. Yeah? So it depends on which country. Yeah? I think youth today, they are more, let's say, mobilized, yeah, in protest movements in Latin America, also the United States. Interesting, United States, less so in Europe. Yeah? This may change, of course, but today in Europe there is a kind of less radical mobilization.
Maybe because for decades now, the last decades, Romanticism is used to describe a person who is a kind of weirdo. Because the social call is, the prerequisite is to be down to earth and productive and effective and all these qualities.
But that's not new.
Which are not qualities, non-qualities, are flaws when we are dealing with the youth, of course.
Yeah, but that's not new. Yeah, the idea that what you need is to be utilitarian and productive and commercial, etc., is always existed since capitalism became dominant. So there has always been an opposition between capitalism and this romantic utopian spirit since Jean-Jacques Rousseau until today. So this is a continuous struggle, right?
Yes. How do you judge new anarchists and Trotskyists of today, that they are actually trying to get along and they...
Yes. Yeah, there has been a change. Revolutionary Marxists or Trotskyists and anarchists used to be often in conflict, but today there are conditions, not always and not everywhere, but they often meet together in movements of protest like Occupy Wall Street, to give an example, or the Zapatista movement in Mexico. I've written a book with a friend of mine, a French revolutionary militant called Olivier Besancenot, and we wrote together a book on Marxism and anarchism called Revolutionary Affinities, trying to show how Marxists and anarchists very often went together. Yes, in the Paris Commune, the first years of the Russian Revolution, the Spanish Revolution. So there is a history of common action and fraternity, solidarity between Marxists and anarchists, which exists till today. So this is what we try to show in this book, which has been translated into Greek, by the way.
Okay. Under the title, you speak Greek.
Revolutionary affinities. I don't know exactly the word in English.
Okay.
Επαναστατικές συγγενείες or something like that.
Επαναστατικές συγγένειες, maybe.
Exactly.
If you were to choose one of your many books, a book that if they would say you should go to an island with only one of your books, or yes, representative of your ideas, your
I lack distance to say which is more important, but perhaps the book on Romanticism, which exists in Greek also, by the way, is perhaps, which I wrote with a friend, by the way, yes, my friend Robert Serre. Perhaps it's the most important one, but I cannot judge.
Yes.
By the way, I'm writing a new book with my friend, Robert Serre, which is a kind of continuation of this book, and it's about Romanticism and Ecology.
Okay. How is working and co-writing with someone, even a close friend? I have this idea of a writer, this image of a writer alone in front of a computer or a typewriter.
Yes. Well, there are many examples in history of people working together.
Yes.
Marx and Engels, for instance.
Yes.
I'm not comparing myself to
Of course.
But anyhow, I like to write with other people.
Yes.
And, for instance, with my friend Robert Serre, we have a common idea.
Yes.
We discuss it. Then we work out a plan of what we want to write. We divide in chapters. And then each one writes a chapter, and the other one criticizes it, saying, you forgot this, and I don't agree with that phrase. And then we discuss and we change. So we can work together.
You share with Robert Serre. It's also the name. Which is your definition on melancholia?
Melancholia. Melancholia is an important component of Romanticism, because there is the feeling of a loss. Something existed in the past, in a kind of golden age or lost paradise, which was destroyed by capitalism. So this is melancholia, the feeling that we lost something which was important for human life, some values which have been destroyed by capitalism. This is melancholia, and I think it's part of the culture of the left. One of my friends, a young scholar called Enzo Traverso, recently published a book called Left Melancholia. I like this title.
Yes.
And he dedicated the book to me, very kind, because we agree on this. The melancholia is part of the culture of the left.
Is the way left parties in a new liberal environment change their fundamental values, transform them in order to exist, a source of melancholia?
No. I think melancholia has two reasons, let's say, background. One is the romantic melancholia.
Of political melancholia.
The romantic...
Left this kind of melancholia, the
there
kind
are
that you...
two sorts of melancholia. One is a romantic melancholia, which is cultural. The feeling that something in the past was lost by capital. But there is a political melancholia, which is the feeling of the defeats of the left. We have been defeated again and again.
That's what I'm talking about.
But not only now. It's a whole history of the revolutionary aspirations and struggles. The Paris Commune was defeated. The Russian Revolution triumphed, but then Stalinism destroyed it. So there's a series of defeats which are part of our history. We have to live with this history, and this is also a source of melancholia.
Yes, but also maybe it can be a motive in order to renegotiate, reinvent your I don't know, not goals, but yes.
You know, Samuel Beckett...
To reinvent yourself.
Exactly. Samuel Beckett has a phrase which I like very much, saying, we failed again, next time we will fail better.
He had a sense of humor, of course. We didn't mention at all throughout this conversation Goldman,
Lucien Goldman.
Yes.
Lucien Goldman, yeah. Well, Lucien Goldman,
a key person.
Very important for me, yes. I went to Paris to study with Lucien Goldman. He was directed my PhD on Marx.
In opposition to Nikos Poulantzas' ideas.
Yeah,
also.
He was very different from Poulantzas, of course. Yeah, he was a follower of Lukács. Yeah?
Yes.
So thanks to Lucien Goldman, I discovered Lukács. Yeah?
Yes.
So, but my PhD was on Marx, where I did two PhD. One in France at that time there were two PhD, troisième cycle and doctorat d'état. So my troisième cycle was on Marx, and it was on with Lucien Goldman. So I used the method of sociology of culture inspired by Lucien Goldman, but we had some disagreements also. He didn't quite agree with my thesis on Marx, etc. We discussed, but he was very tolerant. Yeah, he disagreed with me, but he let me develop my own ideas. Yeah,
yes.
He was really great. Yeah,
as a teacher should be.
Yes, as it should be, but not everybody.
It's not, of course, it's not, we cannot take it, especially today, for granted that the educational system is, you know, so much based on reproduction of the things given, the knowledge given. How do you like Greece? You've been here numerous times, and
I'm in love with Greece. And one of the reasons is that I'm in love with a Greek woman, for the last 35 years. So I have a strong relation to Greece. We come very often to Greece. We spend the summer in Greece. I've learned Greek. I can read Greek. I can understand. I cannot speak very well. And I like very much Greek music, Greek culture, literature, Kavafis, poetry. So I really feel very much at home in Greece, yeah.
What taste did the convention of the foundation of the Parliament, Art and Democracy, leave you?
Yeah. Well, first
was it a productive one?
Yes, of course. I couldn't take part in all the days, but those days I was there, it was very interesting, and I learned a lot. Really, I learned a lot. And I was also very happy to have the occasion to discuss my own ideas on Romanticism and Surrealism, etc., with the colleagues, the Greek colleagues and the public, yeah? So it was a very productive experience, I think.
So, last but I think the most important for you at the moment is Romanticism and Ecology, which, as you've mentioned already, is the theme of your book in progress.
Yes. Yes. So I'm writing a new book with my friend Robert
Give us a taste, yes.
Which is on Romanticism and Ecology. And the last chapter is on Romanticism and Ecology today, and the person we picked to study her writings is Naomi Klein.
Of course.
Naomi Klein. Particularly her book, which is called This Changes Everything. And we see that Naomi Klein is very much interested in the indigenous movements in defense of the forests, the rivers, the mountains, in defense of nature against the capitalist destruction of the environment. And these indigenous cultures represent ancestral wisdom, old traditions who come from the past.
Linked to earth?
Yes, linked to the earth, to Mother Nature, Pachamama, as they say in Latin America. So this is a romantic approach. The past, these indigenous communities represent values from the past which capitalism ignores and destroys. And they are on the first line in defense of the nature and the environment against the destruction.
Very, very important to underline and to stress this important and I would say fatal and basic links. Mr. Professor, Mr. Levy, thank you very much, so very much for this conversation, for being here.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ. Και εσάς, κυρίες και κύριοι, ευχαριστούμε πολύ που παρακολουθήσατε αυτήν εδώ τη συνάντηση. Καλό σας βράδυ.